Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Brachos Daf Memhei. We're on the last line of Mem Dalad Amud Beis. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah taught us that one who drinks water to quench his thirst, he recites a bracha prior to drinking. Says the Gemara, La'afuki mai. The Mishnah tells us that only if it's litzmoy to quench his thirst, then he makes a bracha. What are we coming to exclude? Which case wouldn't require a bracha? Amar Vidibar Avin, it's coming to exclude the following scenario. La'afuke leman, to a person, the chankase umtza. That umtza, piece of food, chankase is choking him, is lodged in his throat, and he's using the water to dislodge the item. In this case, since he's using the water merely for his side benefit, he's deriving an indirect hana from it, no bracha is recited. Only if he's using the water to quench his thirst, which is a direct hana, a direct pleasure, he will recite a bracha. But in this case, he's merely using it as a tool to dislodge an item from his throat. In this case, it's not considered to be a significant enough hana and doesn't require a bracha. Now, Tosfos points out that this is strictly regarding mayim, water, since it's tasteless, but any other beverage that has a taste, or food, even if he's using it merely to dislodge an item, nevertheless, since he has anah, since he has pleasure from the taste of the item, he will make a bracha. Tosfos brings a raya proof from what we learned earlier in this parak. The Gemara teaches us if one eats a food, even if his primary intent is to eat it as a refuah, for a remedy, nevertheless, the Gemara tells us a bracha is recited. Why? Since he has that pleasure not from it, from the taste, boy, bracha needs to make a bracha. So to here in this case, even is merely drinking this beverage to dislodge an item, nevertheless, since he has enough from the taste, he makes a bracha. It's only water. Since water is tasteless, and in this case, he's not drinking it for its beverage value, but merely as a tool to dislodge an item, no bracha is recited. So again, regarding water, if one drinks it to quench his thirst, a bracha is recited. But if he's merely using it to dislodge an item, no bracha is recited. Regarding other liquids that have a tam, have a taste, or foods, even in this type of case, a bracha will be said. So which bracha is one to say on water? Says the Gemara, we have a machlekes. Tanakama said, Shakol nimidvarei. Rav Tarfon said the bracha before water is burn nefashos Rabbi Chasroinan. So what's the halacha? Amalei Rava Bar Avchan Labai. V'Amalei, some say yes, Rabbi Yosef. Hilchas Samai, what is the conclusion regarding the bracha on water? Amalei, you want to know what the bracha is? Puk Chazei, go outside and see. Go observe. Mai Amma Devar, what the nation is doing. Go see what your fellow Jews are reciting on their water. And act accordingly. Says Rashi. So what is the accepted custom of Kvar Nagu? Levarich b'tchila beforehand Shakoil. Afterwards, burn nefashos Rabbis v'chasroinan al kol mashabara, and indeed, that is our practice today. Hadran lach ketzim nevarch. Says the Mishnah, shloisha she'achlu ka'achas. If three individuals ate together as one, what does that mean? They ate together as one. Explains Tosfos in the name of the Rif. Either they began their meal together or they concluded together. In any case, says the Mishnah, Chayavin lezamen, they're obligated to be mezamen. What does it mean to be mezamen? To invite each other and designate each other to a collective birchas hamazon, which is preceded with a call, with the invitation, with a bracha that is recited by one of the group, who calls out to the rest of the group, and he says, "Come join me. You're invited to come join, unite, to bind together in our collective bracha." And he says, Nevarech, come bench with me, Nevarech, let's bless Shachalem V'Shaloi. And they respond, they acknowledge, yes, Baruch Shachalem V'Shaloi. And he continues on and proceeds to recite the Birchas Hamazon on behalf of the entire group. So this is the collective bracha, the Birchas Hazimun, which begins with the Zimun that invites all of them to join together in this collective bracha. Continues the Mishnah. What about if the meal was less than ideal and involved eating foods that are questionable, or other situations perhaps that appear like an Aveira? Nevertheless, as the Mishnah, even these type of situations require Zimun. Says the Mishnah, Achol T'mai, if he ate the item of Demai, which was the produce brought from the Amaretz, from the unlearned fellow, which contains an uncertainty regarding how precious to Mr. Maisris, and the Chacham Rabbanim obligated one to be mafresh. What if he ate it prior to being mafresh? It is something which is Asam Rabbanim, or Ma'aser Rishon, which is given to the Levi. They ate Ma'aser Rishon, which is Nitla to Masai, which the Truma was removed from it. The Gemara will explain all the details and backgrounds to all these situations. So all these are less than ideal situations, or Ma'aser Sheni, the Hegdesh Nivdu, that they were redeemed. Ma'aser Sheni is meant to be eaten in Yerushalayim. If it's redeemed, it can be eaten outside Yerushalayim. Or Hegdesh, an item belonging to Hegdesh, which was redeemed. Va'ashama Shachal Kazayis, the waiter that joined them partly, he ate a kazayis, a sheer kazayis of bread. Va'akuti, these are the group of people that came to be Megayer, that came to convert, and their conversion was very questionable. Nevertheless, in all these cases, they can join, they can be counted as part of the shleisha, as part of the quorum of three. Mizamn and Olav, Zimun takes place with them. They are fit, they are eligible to join in Birchas HaZimun. However, if one ate something which is absolutely prohibited, the Truma was not removed from the Maserishan, so that weren't redeemed. In these cases, since it was Achilas Isur, says Tosfos, Lav Shma Achila, doesn't have the status of eating, of a meal. Explains the Rosh, although certainly these individuals are obligated to make a bracha achrona after they ate these prohibited foods, nevertheless, it doesn't have the status of kva. It's not considered to be an established meal, a joint meal experience with the other individuals. Since it's an achilas iser, it's a prohibited food, it is merely like an achilas harai. It's like a temporary meal. It doesn't combine, it doesn't get established and connect with the other ones. Therefore, no zimun, which is a collective bracha, can be applied. Continues the Mishnah. Another case, v'hashama she'ochal pachas v'kazayis, the waiter that ate less than a kazayis. Or finally, v'hanachri, a guy, a non-Jew, mazam nalav. They can't be counted in as part of the shleisha. Says the Mishnah, noshim avadim ektanim, mazam naleim. Women, slaves, or minors, we can't count them in. Men cannot include them in their quorum, in their minyan of shleisha. They can't be mazamin on account of them. The reason is ktanim are exempt, and nashim avodim either they're pater as well, or it's not appropriate for men to join with nashim or to join with slaves, which slaves generally are of low moral character. So it's not appropriate for them to join together in a birchas hazimun. Ad kava mezamnin. What is the minimum amount that one is required to eat? The minimum share of bread to require him, to obligate him in birchas hazimun. And as Rashi says also, if he wants to be mighty them, to exempt them, to make the birchas hamazon on account of the other ones, how much does he need to eat? Ad kazayis, an olive size, an olive volume of bread. Revidaim ad kebetza, the volume of bread, a shear of an egg. So really, this machlekes is based on a general machlekes. What is the shear? What is the requirement to obligate one to make birchas hamazon? Either a kazayis or according to Vida Kabetza. So here in our Mishnah, it's merely a manifestation, it's an extension of that machlekes. With regard to obligating one in Birchas HaZimun, and to be able to be mighty the other one's Birchas HaMazon, he needs to be a Bar Chiyuva, he needs to be an individual who is chayiv in Birchas HaMazon. And therefore, we apply the same machlekes. The Tanakama says, the shir is kazayis. Ravida says, the shir to be mechayiv one in Birchas HaMazon is Kabetza. The question is, according to Yehuda, how do we understand the previous part of the Mishnah, which tells us that a shamash shachal kazayis, a waiter that merely ate a shir kazayis of bread, he can be included in the collective birchas hazimun? According to Yehuda, he's not obligated. He didn't need a kibetza. Say the Mefarshim, yes, indeed, he's not obligated. He's not mechuyev. Why then can he join? Can he take part with the other two individuals in their zimun to latch on to the other ones that he could do, even with a kazayis? Similar to what we find later in the Perek, according to a Shita there, that even if one merely eats yorak, vegetables, he can join the other two in Birchas Hazimun. Although he's not really obligated, but he can join them, it's optional, he can join them and complete their quorum of three. Similarly, regarding a Shamash that ate kazayis, even though he didn't need a proper share according to view, that nevertheless he can take part in their Birchas Hazimun and join with them. So, the conclusion is, to be Machayev Birchas Hazimun, one needs to be a shir, either a Kazayis or Kabetza, according to Rabbi Yehuda. But for the other two individuals, to count him in as part of their group, even a shir Kazayis, and even a Shamish, that he's roaming around, perhaps he doesn't look like he's really part of the meal, he's coming and going, nevertheless, he can be counted as one of the three for Birchas Hazimun. Minan Amili, says the Gemara, what do we find this concept of a collective bracha, a bracha that is recited in unison, that attains a higher status? Where do we find this concept? Amar V'asi de Makro, Gadol Hashem iti, u'neroim Shmayachta. He declares to them, come, Gadol Hashem iti, declare Hashem's greatness with me, together with me. U'neroim Shmayachta, exalt His name together. Let's do it in unison, as a collective praise of Hashem. Not only each individual on his own, let's combine, let's unite, let's do it as a collective bracha, a collective praise of Hashem. Here too, regarding Birchas Hazimun, it is a much greater bracha than merely an individual making a bracha, Birchas Hamazon on his own. It's three people joined together in a collective bracha to praise and thank Hashem. Ravo Amar Mihacha, this will be the source. Kishem Hashem Ekra, when I call out the name of Hashem, Havu, Goydel Ekenu, you give praise to Hashem, you declare His greatness. So it's one person calling out to two, Havu, that's a plural term. You too, Goydel Ekenu. So come join me in this collective praise of Hashem. Continues the Gemara. Omer Rav Chana bar Abba, Minayin, how do we know? La'oina amen, one who acknowledges, one who answers amen after a bracha, after hearing a bracha. Shalei Agbiya Koil Yosem Navarach. He's not meant to raise his voice higher than the one that actually made the bracha. Shenemar Gadol Hashem iti, extol the greatness of Hashem with me together. Don't overshadow me. Don't appear to be more prominent than me. Acknowledge it. Come with me. Unite with me. Let's extol the name of Hashem together. So when a person makes a bracha, and another person overhears the bracha, and responds, acknowledges with amen, he's not meant to appear more prominent than the one that made the bracha. It's merely an acknowledgement. It's a response to the bracha. It's Gadol Hashem iti. Therefore, he must make sure that his voice is not on a higher tone than the Mevarach. A similar concept says the Gemara, Amar Shimon Pazi, Minayin. How do we know? Sheina Metargim, the interpreter, is not meant to Rashe Lagbia Koyle, is not meant to raise his voice higher, Yosim Nakoyer, than the one that is actually reading the Torah. Was there practice that there was a Koyrei in Shul and a Metargim, one who reads the Torah and one who translates the words for the congregation? So the Gemara teaches us that the Metargim is not meant to raise his voice higher than the Koyrei. He's not meant to appear more prominent. He's not meant to overshadow the one that is actually reading the words of the Torah. Shenamar, as we say, Moshe Yadaber, as it says in the pasuk, Moshe Yadaber. When Moshe Rabbeinu announced the words of the Torah that he received from Hashem, he announced it to Klal Yisrael. V'elakim yanenu b'koil. Hashem responded to him, b'koil. Shein tamalim b'koil. The word b'koil seems superfluous. Umar tamalim b'koil. What does the pasuk mean? V'elakim yanenu b'koil. It means as follows. B'koiloi shel Moshe. On the same tone, the same voice level as Moshe Rabbeinu. Explains Tosfos. Although Moshe Rabbeinu needed to raise his voice very high in order to call out the words of Torah to Klal Yisrael, to announce the Torah to Klal Yisrael, he needed to strain himself and to raise his voice on the highest level. However, Hashem Yisbarach, when Hashem spoke to Moshe, he didn't need to do so. He was merely speaking to Moshe. He could have spoken in a very low tone. Nevertheless, the pasuk teaches us that since Moshe Rabbeinu need to elevate his tone of voice on a very high level, therefore Hashem also raised his voice to be equal to the same level as Moshe. That's why it says, Elakim yanenu b'koil. Hashem, who is considered to be like the Koyer b'Torah, he raised his voice to the same level as Moshe Rabbeinu, who is considered to be like the Metargim interpreter. So we see from here that the Koyer and the Metargim are meant to have the same voice level. The Metargim's voice is not meant to exceed the voice level of the Koyer. Tanya Nami Yachi. We learned a Brisa which teaches us the same halacha. Now we have two halachas in this Brisa. Number one, the halacha that we just mentioned, that the Metargim interpreter is not meant to appear more prominent than the Koyer, and therefore his voice shouldn't be raised higher than the Koyer. A second halacha as well, that the Koyer's voice shouldn't be on a higher level than the Metargim. We want the tzibur, the congregation, to pay attention to the Metargim. And not the Korah shouldn't appear more loud and clear than the Metargim. We want them to listen to the Metargim, to understand the interpretation and the meaning of the words. Therefore, the Korah must ensure that his voice is not raised higher than the Metargim. They're both supposed to have the same level. The Metargim not greater than the Korah, so that he doesn't appear more prominent. And similarly, on the flip side, the Korah not greater than the Metargim, because we want people to pay attention to the Metargim. So both of these are contained in the following brayso. Tani Nam Yochi. This is regarding the second halach, that the Korah is not meant to have a louder voice than the Metargim. Says the brayso, but that's not feasible. But the Metargim doesn't have the ability to equalize his voice to the same level of the Korah. In that case, says the brayso, the Korah should take it easy, should lower his voice. So the Korah, the one reading, should lower his voice, so that the effect should be that both the Korah and the Metargim have an equal voice level. Continues the Gemara, Itma we learned. Shnaim shachol kachas. What if two people are eating together as one? Is there a concept of zimun? Pligi Rab Yechon. Machlokes in Rab Yechon. Certainly, there's no chiyuv, there's no obligation. Mishnah taught us only when three people are eating together, there's a chiyuv zimun. But perhaps it's voluntary, it's optional. If they choose to be mezamen, can they do so? Instead of each one making a brichas hamazon individually, can they join together in a collective brichas hamazon where one will be much to the other? Says the one we have a machlokes between Rav and Rav Yechon. Chad Amar one says, Imratzel mezamen, if they choose to do so, they can do so. They can make a collective brichas hazimon by two people. The Chad Amar and the other one says no. Imratzel zamen, ein mezamen. They can't do that. They can't forego their individuality. They can't combine into a collective zimun. Says the Gemara Tanan. We learned in the Mishnah. When three people ate together as one, there's an obligation for zimun. Apparently, three is dafka shloisha in. Only when three people eat together, but shnayim loy. Two people can't make zimun. So this will be a kasha on the shita that allows zimun by two. Says the Gemara. 1 second. Hasam chayva. The Mishnah is speaking about a chiyuv, a compulsory zimun. Certainly, an obligation only applies to three. Hacha reshus. Here we're speaking about optional. They're doing it voluntarily. So perhaps they can do it even by two. Tashma, let's learn. Shloisha shachol kachas. Come listen to this raya from the brayso. Tashma shloisha shachol kachas. Three people ate together as one. Chayav and lezamen. They need to make a chiv zimun. They're obligated to join together in zimun. Ve'ein mashoyin lechalek. They can't separate from each other, because this would be mevatel. This will destroy the quorum, and therefore they can't do it. Says the Gemara, shloishin shnaim loy. Only if there are three people there, then they can't separate. They can't be machalik, because this will take away the option of zimun. But shnayim loy. But if there are only two people eating together, then they could separate. Why? Apparently, there's no chayv zimun. There's no concept of zimun by two. Meaning, the Gemara understands as follows: why can't three people separate? Why can't one walk away and leave two there? And although they don't have three anymore, but nevertheless, according to you, that two people can make zimun together. Here too, the two people that are remaining here, they don't have a problem with zimun. Even though there are only two, they can also make zimun. If you hold that two people can make a collective bracha of zimun, so what's the problem with three people separating? Even if one walks away and leaves only two, they're still eligible to make brachas hazimun. Says the Gemara, Shani Yosim, there is different. Why? Because originally, when there were three people eating together, they've established an obligation of zimun. They were subject to zimun as a chiyuv, because there were three together. So now, when one will walk away, when they will separate, one will walk away and only leave two, although perhaps they can still do brachas hazimun with two, but since now it's only optional, it's voluntary, it's only rishus, since they were subject to a chayva, to do zimun as a chayva, as an obligatory practice, they can't downgrade it. They can't lower it down to a level of reshus. Therefore, that is not allowed. That's why the Brachos says, when three people live together, and they already kiveya their zimun b'chayva, they were obligated to make brichas zimun, one can't really walk away and just leave two, because now you're causing them to downgrade their zimun from a chayva, from an obligation, to merely a reshus, to something which is merely optional. And as Rashi says, God ha-mitzvah, the mitzvah that is done when one is mitzvah, one is obligated, it has a much greater mitzvah. It is a mitzvah of much higher value. Therefore, you're not allowed to downgrade it from a chiyuv to a reshus. So indeed, even two people, if they choose to make zimun, perhaps they can do it. But not if they were already established, if they were already subject to the chiyuv of zimun, which is applied to three. They can't downgrade it to the lower level of zimun of two. Tashma, come and listen to the following raya. If a waiter was serving two people, he can partake in the meal, even though they didn't grant him permission. Why? Says Rashi, because they're amendable, they're happy that he's joining them and making them eligible for Brachos HaZimun. But if he's serving three people, in that case, then he can't partake in the meal unless they grant him permission. So we see clearly that we require three people to be eligible for Brachos HaZimun. That's why the waiter can eat without permission, since they need him for the quorum, they need him for the number three, which is the number required for Brachos HaZimun. So apparently, two people on their own cannot recite Brachos HaZimun. Says the Gemara, Shani Hasam, there is different. Why? Because they're happy. They're willing that he should join them. They want to be nikva b'chayva. They want to be established in the compulsory Brachos HaZimun. They want to recite Brachos HaZimun with a mitzvah, with a chiyuv, mitzvah v'aisa. Therefore, they're happy that he joins them. So although theoretically two people on their own perhaps can make a Brachos HaZimun, however, it is still reshus, it's only optional, only voluntary. And they're more than happy that he joins them, so that they are, on account of his joining them, they will have three, and now they will be mikvul b'chayva, their zimun will be of a obligatory nature. Continues the Gemara, Tashma, come and listen. The following proof. Noshim mezanos la'atzman, women can make a zimun on their own. Vavadim mezanos la'atzman, slaves can get together and make a zimun on their own. Noshim vavadim ektanim, however, to combine these groups, we don't do. In Ratzal Zamen and Mizam, if they want to join together in zimun, we don't do it. Rashi explains, the Gemara soon will explain that it's inappropriate for these to mingle. Says the Gemara, okay, let's analyze the Brachos. Brachos teaches that women, on their own, have no problem making zimun. Says the Gemara, v'hanashim afilu meya, or the Gersa v'hameya nashi, k'trei gavri damyan. 100 women are equal in halacha, like two men. Tosfos explains that anytime we require a quorum, a minyan, a certain amount, a certain number of people, like for a minyan, when we recite the Varan Shivak Kedusha, we need 10 people. Similarly, regarding zimun, which requires 3, we know that only anoshim are counted for that. However, regarding noshim, even 100 women have the same status as 2 men, meaning it's not as though there are 10 or 3 here. They're considered like 2 men, and therefore in this case, we have a whole group of women here. We don't have 3. Nevertheless, the Brachos tells us that women can recite Brachos HaZimun, even though we don't have 3, which is the minimum requirement for Zimun. So apparently, even when we don't have 3, Brachos HaZimun can be said. So this is a right to the Shita that says that even when we have 2 people, they can recite the collective Brachos HaZimun. Says the Gemara again. Even when you have 100 women, they're not obligated. It's like 2 people. Nevertheless, the Brachos tells us, women can make a zimun on their own, and slaves can make a zimun on their own. So apparently, even if there's no chiyuv, even if there's no obligation, you can still make Brachos HaZimun. So too, when there are 2 men eating together, even if there's no obligation, because there are only 2, nevertheless, the concept of Brachos Hazimun, of the collective Brachos Hazimun, will apply there as well. Says the Gemara, that's not a right. Shani Hasam, there is different. When you have a group of women, there's a sufficient amount of deis, of opinions, of mindsets. Explains Rashi. 3 women are more chashav lahoidos to praise Hashem. We're dealing with a variety of perspectives, of mindsets. And when they come together to thank Hashem in unison, that is considered to be a bracha, a collective praise of Hashem of higher value. Therefore, even though they're not men, they're women, and they're not obligated, nevertheless, since we have 3 women coming together, that is a collection of days, of mindsets, of opinions, and that is considered to be a bracha, a collective bracha of a higher value. However, if you only have 2 men, 2 people together, it's not sufficient a number. It's not a variety of people, and therefore they don't join together and create this new entity of a collective bracha and praise to Hashem. As again, Shani Hasam, there is different. When the women come together, it's different. Even though they're not obligated. However, since they're numerous, there's a variety. Dikadeis, therefore, they indeed are eligible. It is appropriate for them to recite this collective bracha, Brachos Hazimun. However, when you're dealing with only 2 men, the number 2 is not sufficient. It's not a sufficient amount of deis to be considered to be a variety and to join together in a collective, elevated blessing, bracha, and praise of Hashem. Says the Gemara, so let's take a look at the seif of the Brachos. Noshim va'avodim imrotzu lezamen emazamen. Women and slaves, that they want to join together to make zimah, they can't. Why? But we have many opinions, we have many perspectives, many mindsets. Why can't they join together? Maybe because of zimun. Says Gemara, Shani Yasam Shem Prisusa. Over there, it's because of a different concern. Because of Prisusa, we're concerned about inappropriate activity taking place between these groups of people. Says the Gemara, Tistayim, let's determine the Rav, the Omar Ratzul Zamin Imazam. We had a machlekes in Rav Yochanan, whether 2 people have the option of making a Brachos Hazimun together. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out who says what. Tistayim, let's determine. The Rav is the one that says the Omar Ratzul Zamin Imazam, that Zimun cannot be applied to 2 people. How do we know that? The Omar of Dimar Yisrael Rav. Shloish shachol ka'achas, the 3 people ate together as one. And one of them walks out to the market. When they finish eating, they can call out to him. And all of they can make zimun on his account. They can go and inform him, they can call out to him and inform him that they're ready to bench, they're ready to make zimun. And he will turn to them and pay attention to them and listen to their zimun and respond. That's okay. Says the Gemara, Tama the currently. Only because they're doing it in that manner, they're calling his attention, and he's there and he's responding. So he's joining with their zimun. But otherwise, 2 people alone, the remaining 2 people cannot do Brachos Hazimun. So apparently, Rav, who is the author of this halacha, holds that Shnaim Ein Mezamnin. Says the Gemara, Shani Asam, there is different. The Ikvulu B'chayve Meikara. The same teretz the Gemara said earlier, since they began as 3, they were subject to the Chayiv Hazimun, to Zimun as a compulsory thing, as an obligatory mitzvah, chayva. Therefore they can't absolve themselves, they can't downgrade it. Therefore they must call out and find the 3rd fellow and have him join in their zimun. But theoretically speaking, 2 people alone can do Brachos Hazimun according to Rav. So okay, we have no right from here regarding Rav Shita. Ella, let's move on to Rav Yochanan, to Stay and Rav Yochanan. Let's figure out, let's determine that Rav Yochanan is the one that says with the Amar, Imratzul Zamein Ein Mezamnin, that if 2 people choose to make zimun, they can't do so, and they must make their Brachos Hamazon individually. The Amar Rav Yochanan Rav Yochanan, Rav Yochanan taught us the name of Yochanan, Shnaim Shachlu Ka'achas. If 2 people eat together as one, Echad Mem Yoytz Brachos Chaveroi, one of them can be exempt by the bracha of his friend. Meaning, Reuven and Shimon, Reuven can make a bracha, Brachos Hamazon, and be moitzi and exempt Shimon. Va'aviv, and we asked, Micah Mashman, what is Rav Yochanan coming to inform us? Tanina, we learned this already elsewhere, that If Shimon listens to Reuven's bracha, he's yaitze. Shama v'lo ana yatza. If one listens to the bracha that is recited by his friend, even if he doesn't respond, he doesn't acknowledge, doesn't say amen, nevertheless he's yaitze. So what is Rabbi Yochanan coming to teach us? A halacha that we find elsewhere. V'amar Rab Zera loymar is coming to teach us as follows. What is Rabbi Yochanan coming to tell us when he says that two people that ate together, echad mehem yoytze bebirchas chaveroi, that one can be yoytze when he hears the bracha of his friend? He's coming to teach us a halacha, profound halacha. Loymar, he's coming to teach us the following halacha: she'ein birchas hazimun beinayim, that when two people eat together, it is one listening to his friend's bracha. It is not a joint bracha. It's not a united bracha. It's not a combined, collective birchas hamazon. Why? Because there's no birchas hazimun by two people. Therefore, Rabbi Yochanan was very specific in his words, and he says, two people that ate together, one can be yotze through the bracha of his friend. It's his friend's bracha that is applying to him as well. But if they want to join together as one in a collective birchas hazimun, that they cannot do, because two people don't have the concept of zimun. They can't say nevarech shachal neshaloi and he'll respond baruch, and they can't do that because two people don't have the concept of zimun. If they need to, one of them can make his own personal bracha and be mighty his friend, but it's not considered to be a joint bracha. It is an individual bracha, each one for himself. Tistayim, the Gemara concludes, yes, this indeed is a determination that we see that Rabbi Yochanan apparently holds that two people cannot make zimun. Continues the Gemara. Amalei Rabba Barafuna Larafuna. Vaha Rabbanon de Osman Marava. The Rabbanon that came from Marav Francis Amri, they told over Imratzol Zamnan Mizamnan. If two people choose to make zimun, they can do so. My love, is it not? Don't we assume the Shemilah of Yochanan? Now where did they hear this halacha from? Apparently they must have heard it from Rabbi Yochanan, who was in Eretz Yisrael. So we see that Rabbi Yochanan holds that two people can make birchas hazimun. So no. Where did they hear it from? The Shemilah of Rav. They actually heard it from Rav, because Rav indeed holds that two people can make birchas hazimun. They heard it from Rav Mikami Denachas LeBavel when he was still in Eretz Yisrael before he went down to Bavel. So it's Rav who is actually the author of this shita, of this opinion, that two people together can make birchas hazimun. However, Rabbi Yochanan holds that two people are not meant to make birchas hazimun. They're not meant to join together. Rather, each one is meant to make his own individual bracha, and not to make a collective bracha and be mighty each other with the bracha. Apparently, Rabbi Yochanan holds that every individual making his bracha on his own, that bracha carries greater value than being mighty each other, than combining together in a birchas hazimun when we're speaking about two people. However, Rav holds that although you're giving up on your individuality, nevertheless, joining together, even two people, is considered to be an elevated bracha. It has an added element of collectivity, of union, and that can be done even at the expense of giving up on your individuality and not making your own personal bracha. So in conclusion, regarding birchas hazimun, we have two sources for the concept of this collective bracha of three people together, either from Kishem Hashem Ekra or from Gadla Hashem Iti. Three people together is a chayva, is an obligation to do zimun. What does it mean together? They ate as one. Either they began together or they concluded their meal together. Regarding two people eating together, we have a machlokes according to Rav. They can, if they choose, they can make zimun. It is a rishus. According to Rabbi Yochanan, they cannot. They must make individual brachas. Three women together, a group of women together, we have machlokes rishonim. Rashi maintains that their zimun is only rishus, is only optional. However, other rishonim maintain, the Rosh says that according to the Gemara's answer, that shani hosam dika deis, that since there's a collection of various perspectives and opinions and mindsets, that therefore they're suitable to combine and join together as one and praise Hashem. So three women together, according to the Rosh, are mezamen chayva, they're obligated to make birchas hazimun. Regarding halacha l'maisa, the Mishnah Berurah brings our minute today is not to make zimun. He gives a couple of reasons. Perhaps the chachamim do not obligate them because sometimes women have a hard time benching, or for a different reason he brings that benching was done with wine. So he brings that our minig is that women will not make birchas hazimun on their own. However, they certainly are obligated birchas hazimun if they're eating a meal together with men. Certainly they answer, they respond, just as the men do to the zimun. Regarding avodim, noshim, ektanim, the Gemara tells us they're not meant to join together, to mingle together. We're concerned about inappropriate behavior. We're not mezam mishum pritzusa. Continues the Gemara. Gufa, Amar Abdim Bar Yosef, Amarav. Shloisha shachol kachas. 3 people ate together as one. V'yotz echad on the shuk, and one walked out to the market. Kurloi, they call him, they get his attention, and umezamnov, they can make the zimun and count him in. Amar Baivudu Karli V'ani. It's only in a case provided that the karulei, they call him V'ani, and he responds, meaning they say Nevar Shachal Shaloi, and he responds Bara Shachal Shaloi. This is only regarding 3 people. 2 people are left inside and the third one's outside. They unite, they combine. But if we're dealing with 10 people that are making a zimun together, in that case, the name of Hashem is added to the zimun. Nevarch to Hashem Shachal Shaloi. In that case, Ad Denaisi, they need to be together as one. You can't make zimun when one is outside in the street. He doesn't combine with them. He's not mitzvah with them for the sake of mentioning Hashem's name. Maskav Ravashi, Adarab, just the opposite. It is reasonable to say just the opposite. That regarding 10 people, we can leave one outside. Why? Tisha Ner and Kasara. Because the difference between 9 and 10 people is not so clearly discernible. Therefore, even if you have 9 here, it doesn't look so different than 10, and it's still okay, it's suitable to recite Hashem's name when we combine the fellow that's outside. However, regarding 3 people, when one's outside, Shnayim and Irin Kishloisha, there's a vast difference between 2 and 3 people. Therefore, it's reasonable to say just the opposite. When we have 3 people here and one walks out, that we can't combine, we can't be matzaref him. But if there's 10 people and one's outside, since 9 and 10 are very closely related, it is enough to make birchas hazimun, even if 9 are inside and the 10th guy is being mitzvah from the outside. Says the Gemara V'ilchas K'mazutra, and the final halacha is like K'mazutra, that this allowance is only regarding 3 people, but certainly regarding 10 people, a minyan, we require that they all are present here inside my time. Why? Because we need to mention Hashem's name. Batzim Asara. When we have less than people, but lav oirach ara, less than 10 people is not appropriate. So we have a machlekes between Marzutra and Ravashi in the case where one of them went outside to the shuk and they would like to make zimun on account of him, to count him in. According to the Marzutra, when it's a zimun of shloisha, that's allowed. But when it's a zimun of 10, that's not allowed, because Shem Shemayim requires 10 to be present here. According to Ravashi, just the opposite. When it's a zimun of 3 and one is outside, we can't do zimun. But regarding 10 people, a zimun of asara, in that case, we allow it even in this case because 9 and 10 are closely related. Tisha are near and kasara. Says the Gemara, Amar Abayi Naktina, we learned the following halacha. Shnaim shachlu ka'achas. If 2 people ate together as one, mitzvah lichalek, it is a mitzvah. It is preferred that they split up and make individual berachas hamazon rather than one reciting on behalf of the other. Tani namiyachi, we learned the Bryce in support of this. Shnaim shachlu ka'achas. 2 people ate together in unison. Mitzvah lichalek. Bamed v'amamurim. When is this said? Because Shneim Seifrim, when they're both scholars, they're learned people, they can make berachas hamazon on their own. But aval echad Seifer, one is a scholar of echad bur, and the other one is an unlearned fellow. In this case, certainly Seifer mevorech, the learned one should make the bracha, ubur yaitze, and the unlearned fellow should be yaitze with the Seifer's bracha. Explains Tosfos, why do we obligate them to make individual brachas? Says Tosfos, because berachas hamazon is d'oraisa. Therefore, it's unlike other brachas that are merely midrabanan. Therefore, here we require each person to make his individual bracha. Number 2, says Tosfos, since they're already at the end of their meal and they're prepared to go on their separate ways, therefore the tziruf is no longer the bond is no longer intact, and therefore we prefer that they make individual brachas rather than they join together in one collective bracha. Now this puts the previous discussion in perspective. We had a machlekes regarding two people. If they choose to make Brachos Hazimun according to Rav, they may do so. According to Rav Yechon, they can't. They must make individual Brachos Hamazons. So it appears that according to Rav, although they're going to forego this individuality factor, nevertheless, since by joining together, this creates a collective Brachos Hamazon, it has an added element and it compensates for the individuality. So according to Rav, they may do so. According to Rav Yechon, however, no. You may not forego your individuality for the sake of joining together, of two people creating this joint collective Brachos Hamazon. Two people joined together, that has no significance. Three people, yes, that's considered to be an elevated manner of Brachos Hamazon. That's considered to be a collective bracha that has great significance. It's learned from the Psukim. And that certainly comes in place of individuality. That certainly is greater than each one making his bracha on his own. But merely two people joining, that has no added element, and therefore one cannot do so. If it's at the expense of individuality, each one needs to make his own Brachos Hamazon. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rava, the following thing, Amrisana, I said on my own, V'ritamra, was said over, Mishmei Rav Zera Kavasi. It was said over the name of Zera, and it concurred with my opinion. Shloisha shachal kachas, three people eating together as one. Echad mafsek l'shnayim. One of them needs to interrupt his meal and join the zimun when the other ones are ready. However, but two don't need to stop for one. Says the Gemara, no, v'loy. For Rav Papa, afsek leila Abba Mari brei. Rav Papa interrupted his meal for his son Abba Mari. Ihu v'chad, when it was him and somebody else. So we see two people interrupted for one. Says the Gemara, Shani Rav Papa, the lefnim shir sadin avad. He did beyond the letter of the law. He wasn't required. He did the lefnim shir sadin, as Rashi says. He did it to show chashivas, la'achshuvei, to give honor, to show chashivas for his son. Continues the Gemara with another story. Yehuda bar Merema together with Mamre Avashi, together with Rachman Redifti. Karchi rift about Adadi. They ate a meal together and they came to Brachos Hamazon. There was nobody there who was more distinguished than the others. To initiate the Brachos Hazimun. Amri, they said, this is what we say in the Mishnah. Three that ate together, obligated to make zimun. Hani mili, this is only when there's a great man, there's somebody of higher stature that will initiate the Brachos Hazimun, will invite the others to join in this collective bracha. But if we're all of equal stature, in that case, Brachos Hazimun is not done, but rather chiluk brachos adif. It is better to split and make individual brachos rather than join together in Brachos Hazimun. We know that Brachos Hazimun is meant to be given to offer to the Adam Gadol in the group. And as the Mepharshim point out, what do we know Brachos Hazimun from? From the Psukim of Gadol Hashem Iti. Who recited that? David HaMelech declared, come join me. Ki Shem Hashem Ekra. That was declared by Moshe Rabbeinu. So a great person, he is meant to go and declare and invite the others to join him in this collective bracha. But for all of equal stature, it doesn't apply. So indeed, they proceeded Baruch Inish L'Nafshe. They made their individual Brachos Hamazons, and then Oslo Kamei de Merema. They went to Merema and they told him the story. Amar Lusi told him, you've made a mistake. You should have done Zimun. Yidei Bracha Yatzasim. Okay, you fulfilled Brachos Hamazon, but Yidei Zimun Lo Yatzasim. You've missed out on Zimun. V'chi Teimer. Okay, so you'll say it's not too late. Niha Adon Azama. We'll go back and make Brachos Hazimun. Although we benched already, but Brachos Hazimun is that added bracha, that collective bracha that we can do even now. No, he told him, Ein Zimun l'mafreya. Zimun doesn't work retroactively. Once you've benched Brachos Hamazon, you can't do Zimun any longer. Continues the Gemara with another halacha. Ba'u matzon. If a fellow arrives and he encounters a group engaged in Brachos Hazimun, Ba'u matzon k'sheim avarchem. Ma'u emachreim. What does he say after them? Rav Zidama, Baruch Mavarach. He's meant to say, Baruch Mavarach. Taisa says, Baruch Mavarach Shmoi Tamid Lo'ilam Vayit. That's how he responds. Rav Papa Amar Ina Amen. He merely says Amen. V'loi pligi. It's not a machlekes. It depends when he arrives. Had ashkechinu deka Amen Nevarach. The first case is speaking about when he encounters them, when they're holding at Nevarich, when the initiator of the Zimun declares, come, Nevarich, join me in Zimun. So now he can respond, Baruch Nevarich, L'Olam Va'ed. However, the Ka'amri Baruch, but the other case is speaking about when he joins, when he encounters them, that when they're ready at the next step, they're already responding, they're saying Baruch. They're responding to the Mizamin. At that point, all that's left for him to do is to say Amen. Explains the Gemara, if he encounters them while they're saying Nevarich, so he can respond to the Mizamin and say Aymer Baruch Nevarich. However, a tad later, once they're already responding to the Mizamin, at that point, he can only say Amen and acknowledge what they're saying, Ani Amen. Continues the Gemara, Tani Chad, we learned one brayso, if one adds the word Amen after Kol B'chaysav, the Gemara soon will explain what that means. Harizam Shubach, it's praiseworthy. V'tani Idach, Harizam Meguna, it's despicable. One is not meant to acknowledge his own bracha by adding Amen. It's more like Kasha, it's not difficult. It's not a contradiction. This is the resolution. It depends. Ha B'Bani Yerushalayim, Ha B'Shah Brachos. By Bani Yerushalayim, which is the end of the sequence of the brachos in Brachos Hamazon, that are midaraisa. We know the first three brachos are midaraisa. So at the end, which is Bani Yerushalayim, at that point he is meant to say Amen. So that's the first brayso. One is meant to say Amen achar kol brachos when he completes the series of his brachos. Ha b'shah brachos. The second brayso is speaking about ordinary brachos. One says Amen achar kol brachos on any of his brachos. That is not meant to be done. Says the Gemara, Abaye honorably b'koila. Abaye would say this Amen after Bani Yerushalayim. You'd say it out loud because this is the end of the brachas deraisa. Ki heichi the lishma pailim, so that the laborers will overhear, will see that they're holding at the end of brachas deraisa. V'likum, and they go back to work. The atoiva meitiv al deraisa, because the fourth bracha of atoiva meitiv is merely a derabanan, and the workers are not meant to take off time from their labor to say atoiva meitiv. Therefore, Abaye announced it so they know now it's time to go back to work. Rav Ashi, Rav Ashi said the Amen, but he said it quietly. He whispered it. Why? So that the masses shouldn't be mazal, shouldn't be little, shouldn't be lax in the Hateva Meitiv. Therefore, he didn't want to make that public distinction between the brachas deraisa and brachas deraban. He said it quietly. So, in conclusion, we have a few halachas regarding zimun. Echad mafsek l'shnayim. One individual is meant to interrupt his meal and join the zimun when the other ones are ready. Then we learned about shloisha afilu shavin, even if they're of equal stature, they make zimun. We learned that in zimun l'mafreya. Once we said Brachos Hamazon, it's too late for zimun. We learned regarding the latecomer, person who arrives and sees the group engaged in zimun. He's meant to say Baruch U'Mavarach. If he comes later, they're already responding, then he should say Amen. And finally, we learned regarding Amen. He's meant to say it at the end of the sequence. And Brachos Hamazon, Rashi says even at the end of the sequence of Brachos Krishma, Tesis says that the minhag is not so. Only after Bani Yerushalayim we say Amen. Abaye said it loud. Rav Ashi whispered it so that the crowd will maintain the proper regard and respect for the bracha of Hatay V'Ametiv.